It's 8:38, your Friday morning team show, and welcome to the studios of WSGW, Chittiwassee Road, Carlton Township.
You know, in my radio career, I've always wanted to do something.
And what is that?
I've always wanted to hear confessions. I have many friends who are in the Catholic Church.
We might be able to accommodate you.
And this morning I'm going to hear a confession.
This morning in our studios, we have a guest with us. Now, we should set this up by saying this guest with us is a national talk show host who you hear on a nightly basis on 100.5 FM. In fact, on our weekend shows as well, 9 till midnight, and even on 790 AM, a Sunday night show from 10 p.m. to 1 a.m., so he's well represented. Last night he broadcast his national show from our studios here at WSGW. Into the 9 o'clock hour with Art Lewis on 790 AM, you'll hear much more of a conversation that we're going to take now a few minutes to spend with nationally known talk show host Alan Hunt is with us. Good morning, Alan Hunt, and welcome.
Good morning team. Great to be with you. I want you to know I shut it down last night for you. I locked everything up. I come back this morning and I find you here perky, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed. Well, we don't believe in sleep. This is radio. No time for sleep.
No time for sleep.
So at 9 o'clock when we do this confession thing, do I have to put up some kind of barrier so you don't have to look at me, can't see me?
Kind of like the guy who's been away from the church for a long time, right? 30.
Oh, has he really? Oh, okay. So, that's
It's beyond
what
you.
do I know?
Yeah. So there's a guy who's away from the church for 30 or 40 years. He comes back and he goes into the confessional for the first time, and he sees Irish whiskey on one side and he sees cigars on the other, and he goes, "Father, things have changed since I've been away." And the priest says, "Get off my side."
One of the reasons Alan Hunt can tell jokes like that from the heart is because he has an interesting background to where he now exists in the radio, because you come from a background of the church.
I do.
How, we should ask, does a man who used to pastor a mega church, 7,000 plus members, go from preaching to the congregation to preaching to the national airwaves of a radio talk show?
I don't even preach on the airwaves, Charlie. I just show up and we talk about things. But what we discovered, and boy, do we have a great listening audience in Saginaw Bay City and Midland. FM Talking Sports 100.5 is one of our most responsive affiliates, so I'm thrilled to be here. But I really just kind of happened into it by accident. You know, we discovered, we started a radio show on the weekends when I was still pastoring, and discovered that nobody on talk radio really ever mentions the word faith. And so while my show is not a preacher show or a Bible study show or anything like that, 9 out of 10 Americans say faith plays an important part of their lives, and it's virtually ignored on talk radio. So we look at the same kinds of issues and topics. Like last night we were looking at the young woman who's 16 years old and was lost at sea, and they fortunately found her overnight, and looking at that from a faith perspective and from a parenting perspective. So we look at a lot of the same topics as other shows, but bring a little different lens to the view.
And Alan's being just a little humble when he said he started a weekend show with Len, because he was fortunate enough to start that show on WSB, which is a blowtorch.
Yeah, we were kind of stupid, Art. I mean, we didn't know. Me and a guy, I was a pastor, and the other guy was a food service guy. And so there's a really big talk station in Atlanta. We didn't realize, wow, this is evidently a big deal. It was our talk station, so it was natural to us go talk to them. And yeah, we got kind of lucky.
Yeah.
I wouldn't call it humble. I'd call it luck or grace, depending on your perspective.
And along with the faith base that you just mentioned, you also have a different way of perspective that you use with your show, and I'm guessing is probably the way that you're living your life. That you're coming from what a lot of talk shows, including ones a lot of listeners here with both our AM and our FM opportunities, of being more of a right and left, especially in political conversations. You come from the perspective of what's right or wrong.
Correct, and that really has connected with people. We get lots of email from folks saying, really nice to hear something who your whole life isn't defined by politics, and saying, hey, I'm a right winger, or hey, I'm a liberal, but rather I'm a guy who's trying to raise my kids, and I'm trying to live the life that my faith teaches me that I want to live. And so I look at things a little differently than that. So it has connected. We've grown very quickly.
And his manager, Phil, told me yesterday that I was only 30 steps away from a cease and desist order because I say not right and wrong, but common sense. Too close for comfort?
That's right. You're in a halfway house, Art. That's where you are.
Got there before you did, is it?
I have no doubt. You were there waiting.
Along with being a radio host, you're also an author. We were making a reference to that. And this is where listeners, as much as you enjoy having a chance to hear Alan Hunt on the radio, you have a chance to actually meet up with Alan Hunt regarding his book and hear him also give a talk tonight, which you want to delve into now. Confessions of a Megachurch Pastor, the book. Flipping through it, very personal story, Alan Hunt, and very, very powerful, personal and powerful, I guess I'll say.
I think my response to that is thank you, although I'm not sure where you're going with that, Charlie. When they say it's powerful and personal, it could go either way. It's kind of dicey at this point.
In a very positive way, I'm sure. In a very positive way. How did the book come about?
I'm sorry?
How did the book come about?
I was a Methodist pastor for 20 years, and the last 8 of those, as you mentioned, I was lucky to be privileged, really, and blessed to be at one of the largest Methodist churches in the country. And when I stepped aside to do radio, it had been going on in me for probably 15, 18 years, sort of leadings, promptings, nudgings toward becoming Catholic. So once I set aside my pastorate and went into radio, I really kind of began to think about that and to pray about that, and did go ahead and convert eventually. And that's rather unusual, evidently. To me, it was just my journey, but it's evidently unusual. And so I started getting a lot of inquiries everywhere I went about, what'd you do that for? What's that all about? Why'd you do that? So finally, I sat down, wrote a book, and the response to it has been tremendous as well, because I think people are curious about that. Catholics are delighted to hear there's actually somebody who's becoming Catholic, and people who are evangelicals and Protestants like I was say, gosh, I never really thought much about the Catholic Church. What's that about? So it's been helpful.
We should mention that in the book, you endeared yourself to Michigan, because we referenced this the other day when you talk about spiritual cheerleaders, and you use the University of Michigan football team.
The big house. The big house. It's hard to argue with that, Charlie. It was 100. You probably know off the top of your head, 105,000.
110,000.
Yeah, it was 110.
The renovations they've done, yeah.
Yeah, and this year they're going to win more games than they lose. I guarantee it.
It wouldn't take much to do that.
Rodriguez certainly hopes so.
You heard it here first.
This book you have a chance to actually purchase and meet up with Alan Hunt, because you're going to be involved in a book signing with us today. We're going to send you right down the road to TGI Fridays between 2 and 4, and listeners are invited to stop by and meet with you and get your book.
And that's on 10 of Bowasi Road, is that right?
That's right. And you said that so well.
Darn right I did.
Said it better than some of the people I live around here.
Art coached me on that for about a half hour before we walked in the studio.
And you notice we're smart enough to do a book signing in a restaurant with his food.
Exactly. Well, you're going to be with me, right, Art?
Yeah.
2 to 4 today?
2 to 4.
Yeah, TGI Fridays. It'll be fun.
And then following that, Dave Bowden, special event that you're going to ensure that Phil is going to be a part of.
We'll show them more basic.
It's also known as Dave's Church.
That's what the Pope refers to it as. Yeah. Looking forward to it very much, Dave. And in fact, yesterday I met several people from your church, and so I'm looking forward to being there and meeting more.
Well, we're certainly pleased that you're part of the activities this week with our station's Alan Hunt. And again, you're going to be hanging around, because between 9 till 10, as our listeners on 790 AM will hear more of the in-depth discussions about you and your book with Art Lewis.
Scariest show I can do.
Scariest show you can do?
I bet.
Why is that?
Talk show host interviewing a talk show host. That could be a nightmare.
I've brought the tourniquets and the first aid kit. And Art is actually, this is going to be a first on Talk Radio on 790. Art is going to hear my confession.
We might have to ask the question, who's hosting who? Again,
we both may end up in a halfway house after that.
we appreciate you stopping
My
in.
pleasure, Charlie.
Looking forward to hearing more. Again, for those on 790 AM between 9 and 10. And again, the book signing at TGI Fridays 2 till 4, and Holy Trinity Church in Bay City, 7 o'clock tonight, faith-based talk. That is free. Everyone's invited to show up and be a part of it. 8:47 on WSGW Sports Headlines.